Hey guys, welcome back. This is Eric Smith, contributor with the Five Reasons Sports Network and co-host of the Scouting Combine podcast with Hassan Patel. In today's video, we're going to be reviewing the Week 11 offensive line grades that I have for the Miami Dolphins versus the Las Vegas Raiders. As you can see here, the overall season average so far has come out to a 8.37 in my grading. And this week came in pretty close to the average, just a little bit below. Some of the individual performances this week were pretty interesting from a grades perspective. They did continue the trend of, avoiding having a player that was, had a really low grade. So some of the players that were graded higher and some of the ones that were low as far as the offensive line for this week goes, maybe a little surprising, but as an overall performance, it was kind of similar to what they've done in the past, 4 or 5 weeks, where they don't have that one guy that's just, in the low sevens or the sixes that's really hurting their overall grade. As you can see here, five guys played the entire game again, which, we've gotten more this year than we probably did all of last year. Obviously missing Austin Jackson at the right tackle still. Rob Jones coming back helps some. But for the most part, we've had pretty consistent presence along the offensive line for all of this season. All right, so our first surprise of the day is going to be that Aaron Brewer was actually our lowest graded offensive lineman for this week. He came in at a 7.69, which, as you can see, coming into this week, he was the highest graded player of the entire team. And, really good players can have some off weeks. If 7.69 is your worst grade of the season, like it was for Brewer this week, that's still a really good season. And it wasn't he played awful. A lot of it was that the Raiders put him into some tough situations. We know that Brewer's a smaller guy, is going to struggle with a larger defensive nose tackle right across from him, and that's one of his limitations. But it's not a huge negative in the Dolphins offense because the Dolphins like to run on the perimeter more often than running up the middle, and they obviously like to use the run game instead of the pass game. So when you commit one of those big guys to beat up on Aaron Brewer, you might come out with a not so great grade, but when you look at the how much impact it really has on the game, probably isn't as much as the defense would have liked, because when you take that guy and you plop him in the middle of the defense, that means you got to give up, something somewhere else, whether it's that you're a little lighter on the edge or whether you're bringing somebody, an extra guy down the box to create that extra nose tackle position. So this was a game that, like I said, the Raiders did a good job of making life tough for Aaron Brewer, but in terms of the overall impact on the offense, I don't think it was that big of a deal. All right, so when it comes to the film review of Brewer this week, I didn't really get any clips of the clips that I would have graded him with a 0 on. There was certainly some of those in some inside zone plays where the Raiders did a good job of getting him with single blocks where they were stunting, and both him and Rob Jones. There were 2 plays. One was down near the goal line when the Dolphins were trying to score, and another, I think it was on the last drive, where they ran inside zone, and both times both Brewer and Jones looked, almost in unison with the way that they were stepping out to reach that block and getting beat to the backside of it. I didn't get those clips this week just because, running a little behind on my stuff because I was at the Dolphins game this week. But what I did pull were a couple clips here that I wanted to put a little extra attention on. I talked a little bit about this, on X and on Blue Sky, but if you watch Aaron Brewer on these stunts, looking at it live might look like he failed to, switch off on the stunts. But if we're looking closely and looking at this left hand here, you can see that the defensive tackle is reaching behind Brewer and pulling him across, not allowing him to even have a chance to slide back into that. And that happened multiple times in this game. This is going to be the Tua touchdown pass. I think it was to Tyreek here. But as you can see, again, right, he's blocking, guys crossing his face, and they're looping another guy around. But you can see with the way that he is straining to get out there, can't really see the hand on this one, but you can still tell that this defender that crosses his face is in there on the inside of his shoulder pads and preventing him from get to the other defensive tackle. And Brewer does a pretty good job here, actually, of, still getting a piece of him. This defensive tackle actually gets up looking for a hold, which is kind of funny because Brewer was it was this guy who's looking for the hold afterwards, even though he was the one that was actually committing the hold in that situation. And then one more of those, and it's basically going to be the same exact thing, right? You can see that he stunts to the left there, and as he's coming across, right, he hooks that arm underneath Brewer, grabs a little cloth, and doesn't let him slide off. Whereas, if that arm wasn't locked in under there, right, he might be able to get around and get some of Crosby. Inconsequential on that play, but just still something that I noticed a lot this week. And these weren't the only 3 examples of this happening. It's just something that you don't necessarily pick up in the live broadcast, but something that I thought was worth, putting some attention on in the film review this week. All right, now we're coming back over. Our next lowest graded player was going to be Rob Jones, and he came in at a 7.77, which is slightly higher than his season average. And I think this is probably around where we're going to see Rob Jones, average out to. He's going to have some really good weeks where he's up around a 9 and some that are, low 7s, that type of deal. But I think that your average grade for him, when we get to the season, is going to be close to an 8. So this was a pretty average performance for him. You had some plays that he got beat pretty bad. Had some other plays that he looked pretty good as well. And then, you also had a few of those plays where you could see that, he's doing an okay job, but his athletic limitations, are just he's never going to be a stud in this system. He's a guy that's going to be doing just enough to get by as long as he's healthy, and give you a solid performance, but, not somebody that I expect his ceiling is much higher than what he is now. For film review for Rob Jones, so we got him here at left guard. So this play, actually a really neat play design here. So if we talk about play design, we get Tyreek coming across in this jet motion, right? You can see the fake there, and then a little shovel pass underneath the H-hand. Ends up getting tackled short of the end zone. You can see that the reason for that is that Rob Jones, as he's blocking down there, is not able to seal number 95 from fighting across his face and making that play. Otherwise, would have been a walk-in touchdown. Good effort by number 5 there to get back into that play and to make sure that it was finished. But neat play design in the sense that the blocking scheme is not anything new. This is just your traditional power type play where your left tackle here, Austin Jackson, is going to seal the the defensive end here outside, blocking down, blocking back, and then Eichenberg is looping through as the lead blocker on power. Here we go. And, if Jones gets that block, Eichenberg getting up here on the linebacker, and it's a walk-in touchdown. But wanted to share that play, as a play where Jones can be better, but also just a really neat play design that popped up this week. Next highest graded player is going to be Kendall Lamb, coming in at 8.57. So this is a good week for him. You can see it's a little higher than what his season average has been so far. The game plan by the Dolphins certainly protected him to an extent. There was definitely, still missing Austin Jackson, especially in the run game. Dolphins gave him a good bit of help in the pass game as well, but he continued to be a solid replacement player for Jackson. Just not going to continue not to be more than what he is now. It'll be interesting to see whether they continue to roll with Lamb for the rest of the season, or they start looking at some other options, like possibly getting Patrick Paul in there. All right, 2 plays here for Kendall Lamb in our film review. First one here is going to be a crack toss, and it doesn't look like a great play from Lamb here from the beginning, but when you start to look at this and run it through a few times, the entire play was messed up. So I think Crosby started more out here and then shifted to the inside. This is going to be a crack toss play. If the Dolphins just seem to be struggling to get going this year, the block that we're going to get is Jalen Waddle trying to, close that distance to seal him inside. Probably should have had an adjustment to switch that to Malik Washington, who is in a better position, and 2 is a better blocker than Jalen Waddle. But instead, Washington's trying to get outside here to get to the corner that's off the screen. Lamb would be trying to get to this linebacker or safety, whatever that is here, and Waddle should be blocking down there. But you can see that Washington and Waddle run into each other. Washington almost pancakes Waddle, and Lamb recognizes that and tries to adjust to help out, right? So we end up leaving number 30 unblocked here. Washington gets a little bit of the corner, and Achane works some magic to get a solid gain out of this play. But as you can see from the beginning, the reason I'm sharing this was that if you see this in the game, might be thinking that Lamb was the one that was at fault here, but when you really put it together and see what's happening over there and what the play design was supposed to be, you can see that, Lamb adjusting is the reason that play was not a negative gain, and that they were actually able to get something productive out of it. Second one for Kendall Lamb. So this is going to be the last drive of the game, and the reason that I include this play was that, this is one of those plays where you really see how they miss Austin Jackson, because the play is blocked up pretty decently for a outside zone play. You've got the 2 tight ends over here, which was also kind of a new look for the Dolphins this week. And, Smythe and Julian Hill, right, responsible for these 2 defenders. They're getting out there. And then you've got Kendall Lamb and Liam Eichenberg responsible for this defensive tackle and the linebacker here. So watching their combo as they're going, right, Eichenberg is seeing this linebacker is still inside here, so he's going to fall off. What we should have is, Lamb setting the anchor, Eichenberg blocking there, and your run lane is opening up right there. But as you can see, Lamb just isn't able to get his hips around and seal that defender, or just drive him upfield here would also be a great option there. Either one would open that lane for what could be a big gain. Ends up getting tackled for either a short gain or short loss. But, when you're at the end of the game and, you want a team to know that you're going to run at them and that you're still going to be able to do it, this is the type of play that was there. But because of, personnel changes going from Austin Jackson to Kendall Lamb, just a scenario where didn't have that, I keep saying the juice in the run game, and that's exactly the type of play where we're missing Austin Jackson still. All right, down to our final 2 here. Our second highest graded player of the week is Liam Eichenberg, coming in at 8.69. So he had a consistently good day, in my opinion. Not a whole lot of bad plays out of him. He also drew another personal foul penalty, which is, something that's, recently been well documented that he's really good at doing. But, he's been having a solid season overall. You can see that this grade is higher than what his season average has been, but definitely thought this was a good week overall for Liam. And in my pulling my clips, like I said, running behind this week, I didn't really go through and try to find different plays for individual players. But the one that I did have that I wanted to talk about for Liam is this one here. And this is going to be a inside zone to the left side. And as you can see here, we're getting Janu just sealing that defensive end outside. Teron Armstead is helping out with the combo to his corner, outside linebacker, whatever he is. And then we're going to have Rob Jones and Aaron Brewer have essentially a combo. They're responsible for those two players, but he gets outside, so you never really get into the combo. And then on the backside here, Lamb is just going to seal on the backside. They're leaving number 41 here unblocked, banking on this exit motion here, holding him. And that's going to put Liam one-on-one with, this 2-eye technique defensive tackle. Now, this is a situation, and you'll hear this phrase here and there, process over results. So when you watch this play, that looks really bad, and it's not a great play, right? But at the same time, when you're looking at what we're asking Liam to do here is to get his head over to that side of the defender. So he kind of has to sell out to get there. You got to be aggressive getting to that spot. Otherwise, he's just going to stand you up and drive you into the backfield and make that play right here. So Liam going to the ground, obviously not the greatest thing. You see people talking about it every week. But process over results, right? He is taking good first steps here, right? That left foot is opening up, getting him on track. Right leg is trying to go through the crotch of that defender, and the defender swipes him off. But because Liam had good process here, him going to the backside here is taking him out of the play completely. I mean, he doesn't even touch Achane on an inside play. This is hitting on the, front side A to B gap, and he's still not able to touch Achane, even though it looks, on the surface like he completely embarrassed Eichenberg. But this is a case, like I said, process over results, taking those good steps, trusting your techniques. And again, I'm not, if I was grading this PFF style, I'm not going to give him, a +1 or +2 or anything like that for this play, but I'm also not going to grade him too negatively for it also, because the process is there, and that process is what forces that defensive tackle to go to the backside and take himself out of that play completely. All right, so pretty obvious that guy at the top this week is Teron Armstead, coming in a little above his season average of 8.67. Grade this week was 8.75, and this is just, basically normal stuff from Teron Armstead. This is going to be right around where he grades every week. A lot of weeks, Aaron Brewer is just a hair higher than him. We had Austin Jackson in the lineup. He was a little bit below Teron Armstead, but, this is where Armstead is almost always at. Just having a really good season, staying fairly healthy, fingers crossed, for the first time in a while, and hope that he continues to play at the level that he is. All right, 2 plays for Armstead here in our film review. And on the first one here, I think this might have actually been the first play of the game. It was an outside zone to the right. And you can see here that Teron Armstead is slow getting there, right? We talked about in that last clip about process over results. And in that one, Liam was able to get across this defender, actually the same defender, and make him go backside. In this clip, Armstead is not able to get across that defender. And if the ball snap here, right, you can see that the defender's actually able to get a lot of penetration there. And that's, one of the worst things that can happen on a zone run is that you're getting somebody crossing your face and getting penetration here. So, this is kind of an example of, the opposite, that this would be a 0 graded play for Armstead, that he wasn't able to get his head across and stop anything there. Really had that defender gone a little flatter, he'd have blown that up in the backfield, but he got too much penetration and they were able to get a couple of yards out of it. But, this is probably Armstead's worst play of the day. And then next one for Armstead here is going to be a good one. And, the type of play that we've come to expect from Armstead. He's done this a lot this year. And as you can see there, we're getting, an inside run, getting some inside zone action. Brewer's kind of getting stood up there. And like we talked about, not his greatest week because they did put a nose there and made life tough on him. But what you get on the backside here is one of the things that Armstead does really well, and that is that, they're doubling this defensive tackle here, and Rob Jones is the primary blocker, but Armstead does a really good job of getting in there with that right shoulder and creating movement there on his way through. And if I remember correctly, this was a short yardage situation. And as you can see, right, most of the stuff is stacked up there. You're getting, I don't know if this was supposed to be kind of a combo block that Smythe is trying to get inside there. Obviously, it doesn't look great by Julian, but the way that he is climbing to that linebacker, maybe that's what they were intending. Hard to tell. But like I said, purpose of this clip was to highlight Armstead and the way that he does a good job of, crashing that edge down and creating a lane to be able to run through. All right, so this was the main part of the video. I'm going to go into a few more plays here if you want to stick around. But as you can see, these are the grades that we had. The grades look kind of similar to what we've had. It's just that, some of the players have kind of flipped around. I mean, mainly Brewer and Eichenberg basically flopped scores from what we see most weeks. But the anatomy of the entire group of the offensive line and the grades, again, like I said, come out to about what the season average has been for them. So I thought this was, another solid week for the guys up front. All right, so let's get into, some other stuff, just some other clips that I pulled, wanted to talk about a little bit here. And so this one here is one of those ones that, people say that the Dolphins didn't have a great day on the ground, and it's always interesting that one or two runs can really change the perception of that. And this is a good example of that, in that we're getting, either a inside zone or duo type scheme here, and good job blocking up front. But, what you'll see here is that, look at the lane that's opening up there. And if Achane recognizes that a little earlier and gets outside of Tyreek here, or Tyreek makes that play, right, then you're suddenly looking at Achane getting to the outside here, one guy to beat, and then it's a foot race versus a safety there that, I'm going to take Achane every single time on that. But, looking where that ball snaps at the 3-yard line, right, we're talking about a ankle tackle away from being a 97-yard touchdown. And obviously, if he makes that play, if he's able to get out there and beat that corner and, takes this to the house, then we're not talking about a bad rushing day by any means from the Dolphins. So, I just felt this one was a good one to include, just to show how, one ankle tackle essentially can change the perception of what you may think that the offensive line did as a whole throughout the day. All right, and I got a couple here that, people sometimes complain that I put stuff up that, I'm excusing the offensive line, but I think it's still valuable stuff to see. Again, we look at the overall rushing numbers and we say the line didn't have a great day, but there's a lot of examples of where, a play was not successful, but, not every time that happens is because the offensive line messed that up, right? So here's another good example of that, we're running an outside zone here, and whether Craycraft is supposed to block that guy or not, looks like he's at least starting to go to that corner, right? So looks like he misses it, and maybe is just knows that there's no benefit to turning around and chasing that, so he's going upfield, right? But you can also see that, what is that, Malik Washington looks to be going to that player already. So seems to me that Trevor Craycraft is supposed to block this corner, right? And you can see the way that if that corner is blocked, we're getting good push the rest of the way, and that if Craycraft blocks that corner, we're getting Achane down this lane and able to read that Malik Washington block for potentially a touchdown here that instead turns out to be a no gain type of play. So everything on the offensive line here is good, but something's happening out here that is causing this play to fail. Next one here, same idea, right? So this is going to be a outside zone to the left. And, as we're looking at how these combinations work, right? So Waddle's getting out of here. You're going to have Julian Hill, Janu Smith. They're responsible for these two defenders right there. And then you're going to have Armstead and Jones responsible for the defensive tackle and the middle linebacker. As you'll see, Jones able to get him to the ground, Armstead climbing, right? And now you've got your 2v2 right there. And, looks like Julian Hill is, they want this to hit outside. So Julian Hill is playing through that outside shoulder, expecting Janu Smith to basically get in there and take over that block. He's not able to do that. And then, just kind of it goes to hell from there, in the sense that, neither of them end up blocking that defender. And the play is, again, dead in the water, probably a 2-yard loss on that play. But, again, a play that, the 5 offensive linemen that we talk about, they did their job just fine. Even Julian Hill, in my opinion, probably did a pretty good job on this play. And that Janu Smith just getting too flat here, as opposed to fitting in there, getting hip to hip on that combo block, is, why we have another run failure here. And then last one of that set. So once again, we get crack toss here. It's going to be Malik Washington trying to block down here. Everybody else is outside zone. And, instead of pulling the tackle, now they're going to get Julian Hill coming across the formation. And, this is a play that Julian Hill should be getting outside here, should be one-on-one with him, and Mostert just has to cut off that block for a touchdown. And instead, because Malik Washington is not able to get that crack block, Julian Hill gets stuck to the inside, and we end up with another tackle for loss. So, like I said, this set of plays that I wanted to share was just another example of, even though the run numbers weren't that great, it's not a direct correlation always to how the offensive line is playing. All right, if you're still with me today, appreciate it. If you've watched my videos over the last several months, you've probably figured out that I'm a X's and O's junkie when it comes to stuff in the run game. Find it very interesting, the X's and O's and the execution in the run game. So this play here, right, a defense's goal, if they can't just physically beat you, is to create conflict. And this play, the Raiders do a really good job of that. So if you look here, you've got a safety who would have started back there, and this is pretty close to the snap now, probably waited for all the calls we made, and then creeps down into the box. And that's going to create a conflict at the point of attack when we're trying to run a outside zone play to the left here. The blocking assignments here are not rocket science. I mean, I'm a high school coach sitting at home here looking at this stuff weekly, and I'm able to understand the covered and uncovered principles. Like I said, take him out of the equation right now, because he would have started back here, and then crept up. So, using covered, uncovered principles, you would have these two guys comboing there up to that backer there. Over here, right, covered, and then uncovered, and we're going to be here, and they would work to that linebacker. Liam Eichenberg is going to be solo here, and then they decide to leave this linebacker unblocked, right? You've only got so many numbers, and we're just going to seal the backside here and make sure that Crosby doesn't get in there to make the play. So as the play starts to go, you can see that that motion kind of pulls that linebacker out a little bit. That helps out, right? But this play is dead in the water because of the conflict that it creates. You can see that Armstead's first steps are to the outside here, but he knows he's got to get a piece of this guy at least, right, before he continues on. But you can see that it's just kind of a help and go. I think that maybe he was hoping that everybody over here recognized it and everything bumps over one, but that's really tough to do late in the snap count. So you've got your combo over here that's technically doing what it's supposed to, right? Janu's out here, Armstead's on his guy, and then you kind of have Rob Jones seeing it, but he can't just abandon either, right? He sees Armstead taking it over, maybe he thinks that he's staying there, and then continues to try to work, right? Again, creating conflict. And then you got Brewer, right? He's helping out. Again, those two are trying to take care of those two defenders here. And then Eichenberg is working to this defensive tackle. Lamb is working over here. I'm pretty sure this play was later in the game, so they probably weren't really worried about the pass. So the Tyreek motion may not have taken him out as far as they wanted. You can see that, he's faking like he's following it, but he's attacking right now. And again, this is, creating conflict because when you, again, take him out of the box, we're counting the numbers. Everybody's accounted for except for these two, and those two end up being the ones who ruin the play. So, I guess as they continue to see stuff like that, maybe they get better at recognizing it late into the play clock. But I just thought that from an X's and O's perspective, when you're looking at the way the defenses are going to play the Dolphins, this is the type of stuff that you can see that can create conflicts in the assignments and, ruin a play that may have otherwise, looked pretty good, 5 seconds ago before the safety starts walking up. And obviously the counter to this is that, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that are all committed to the run game versus 6 blockers here. And, if the Dolphins were in a more neutral position in the game, then, they'd probably look at, using this to create some sort of play action and look at a big play somewhere else. But late in the game, they stuck to it, probably hoped that they'd be able to, just sort it out. And, sometimes you get a good play out of these still, right? But, just thought this was a fun one to share in terms of the defense doing a good job of creating conflicts in the outside zone that Miami likes to run. All right, that's going to do it this week. I thought this video was going to be a little shorter just because I was kind of behind in getting my stuff together, but I think this is probably going to end up being one of the longer weekly reviews that I had. Appreciate you guys watching as always. If there's anything that you want to add to the conversation, feel free to leave a comment below. I'm on both X and Blue Sky now, trying to share the same stuff on both of them. Just enjoy the engagement and talking offensive line stuff. So feel free to interact there as well. And we'll talk again next week. Thanks, guys.